SDCCU Stadium, Qualcomm Stadium, the Murph, San Diego Stadium. Regardless of the name, the landmark stadium located in Mission Valley was a hallmark of San Diego sports for over 50 years. Throughout these 50 years, the stadium has witnessed Super Bowls, World Series, and some of the most famous musical acts. When the Chargers moved to Los Angeles in 2017, the stadium was left without a major sports team and its use declined, leading the city to order its demolition. In early 2021, the stadium was finally destroyed, closing an old chapter of sports in San Diego and ushering in a new one filled with hope and excitement. To better understand the stadium's history and impact on San Diego, we interviewed some eyewitnesses to the construction of the stadium and some of the city's most memorable sports moments. Ernest R. Lord was the lead architect on the San Diego Stadium when it was commissioned in 1967. Now retired, Mr. Lord was gracious enough to lend us some of his time in an interview. We asked Mr. Lord what some of the challenges were in such an ambitious undertaking.
The challenges?
Yes.
Well, first of all, the river actually went through where the stadium was going to be built, so the river had to be rerouted.
The land where the stadium was built was previously a dairy farm, a second challenge builders had to face.
Obviously, it had to be surveyed, soils had to be done, the design had to be involved in relocating the river. There was a lot of preliminary stuff, and then you got to remember that this stadium was a little bit different because I think we had I don't know how many cars, 15,000 car parking or whatever, and we had to have access from one road, from Friars Road, so that we had to, there had to be a lot of coordination with the city, with the traffic patterns, with, a lot of things that go on before anybody ever sees the drawings.
Okay.
It's all part of the development, I guess.
When the stadium was built, the stands were designed with a unique feature in order to accommodate both baseball and football.
The movable stands were on tires, were by Firestone.
As Mr. Lord explained to us, the stands needed to be able to be retracted and moved quickly, and the old way of doing so was on tracks. What was revolutionary about the stadium was they used tires to roll the stands out. In its time, the stadium was an extremely large undertaking for a small market city like San Diego. In preparation of the Super Bowl in 1998, it was expanded even further.
It was built for 50,000, and we had to add to it, which was kind of a push and a shove to get 70,000 in there, and so it was never really designed totally for that many people.
We asked Mr. Lord whether this project was his most famous, to which he replied,
"The stadium has to be the most noteworthy thing, yes."
Again, we thank Mr. Lord for his insight and stories into this topic. Next up, your San Diego Padres. Ballard Smith was a son-in-law of the late Padres owner Ray Kroc and ran the Padres as president from 1979 to 1984. During this time, he led the team to a World Series appearance in 1984 with a tremendous increase of ticket sales in the stadium. We are grateful that Mr. Smith was generous enough to lend us a few minutes of his time for an interview. We asked Mr. Smith about how he tried to sell tickets and promote the stadium.
So, just kind of my philosophy about the stadium was we looked at it as being an entertainment venue. Obviously, the baseball games were important, But initially, when I got there, the baseball team wasn't very good. So we used to use the venue for other events. And one of the things that we started doing was having concerts after the ball games. And so we were the first ones to do that. And the first band that we brought in was the Beach Boys. So then what we started doing was each year we did the Beach Boys for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. We started doing some other bands. I remember we did the Doobie Brothers, and I can't remember what the some other ones. And then one time we used the stadium as a movie venue. They were making a movie called The Kid from Left Field. We used it. We used it for a movie venue, and then we started doing. KGB Radio started doing a sky show, so it was fireworks. So we started doing fireworks a couple times after a ball game.
Ballard credits Ray Kroc for helping boost ticket sales initially.
So Ray bought the team, same bad, terrible team. First night, they're losing 8-0. He goes down and gets on the microphone and apologizes to the fans for the lousy ball playing. Well, as you might imagine, that didn't go over too well with the players. And I think he ended up getting fined by the commissioner. But what it did do was the people in the city started to believe this guy, he's like us, he wants to win. Mm-hmm. And so even though the team was just as bad that year, they drew about 1 million too, so about double.
One of the most memorable seasons in San Diego sports history occurred in 1984 when the Padres made their first 2 trips to the World Series. However, that run to the World Series was not without some stressful and exciting games, as Ballard remembers.
So we went to Chicago for the first 2 games, and we lost the first 2 games. It was best out of 5. And actually, we lost the first game 13-0.
It was upon arrival back in San Diego that Ballard realized the importance of his team on the city.
So anyway, we lost the first 2 games in Chicago. We came back, and when we got back here, there were I don't know, thousands and thousands of fans waiting. It was absolutely amazing. And that kind of gave the team a boost. We're doing all 3 games.
Ballard vividly remembers the intense ending of Game 4 of the series versus the Cubs when Steve Garvey hit a walk-off home run to win it.
What I remember about that is we had this box, and I would get so nervous that I'd walk out in the kind of the hallway behind it, and there was a TV monitor up there. Okay. But what I didn't realize was that there was a delay on that TV monitor. So I'm watching Garvey at bat, and all of a sudden there's just everybody's going wild, and I'm looking. Then all of a sudden the pitch comes, and of course he hit a home run to right field. So that was probably the biggest hit in Padre history, I guess.
Deep right field, way back, cutter going back to the wall, it's gone!
The effects of going to the World Series on the community were easy to see, says Ballard.
Obviously everybody wanted to go to the World Series, everybody wanted to win the World Series, but just, having the chance even to compete for it, It was a really, really big thing for the city. It's the first time that the city had ever really had a major sports franchise with the chance to win a championship. So the year after we went to the World Series, we sold 2.7 million tickets.
Wow.
And an interesting stat about that was more tickets than the Yankees had ever sold in Yankee Stadium per season.
The Padres left the stadium in 2004 to move into Petco Park, where they are currently located. As San Diego teams were in the spotlight, not only were teams famous, but other people around them were, especially mascots, one of the most famous being the San Diego Chicken. Ted Giannoulis played the part of the world-famous San Diego Chicken during Padre and Charger games from 1974 to 2003. Throughout this time, the Chicken became the face of San Diego sports. Ted is gracious enough to lend us some of his time in an interview covering his experience as the Chicken, his memories of Jack Murphy Stadium, and the importance of sports in San Diego. Ted was quick to give out praise for the stadium's design.
What I loved about the stadium was that there was this sidewalk ring that went right around the middle of the stadium, and you could walk around from section to section very easily. It kind of brought the whole stadium together. It was like a whole community was sitting as one. I love that about the Murph. It was well designed, and I loved as well how the seats came down onto the field, so you could have close proximity with the players, especially on fall ball chases and such, and so it was just a well thought of, well designed stadium, like I say.
Much like Ballard Smith, Ted emphasized the importance of sports on communities in general.
Sports adds a great boost to the culture of a community overall. You can have libraries, you can have museums, you can have operas. That's all well and good, but sports counts as well, because a lot of people might not be in the finer arts, but appreciate sports. And sports is a great drama that's played every day with skill and of course sports intelligence as well to win a particular game.
Ted also spoke to the importance of the 1984 season in the history and culture of San Diego.
The most exciting time had to have been 1984, the Padres' first entry in the World Series. That was a big moment in San Diego, and people were going nuts. But to be in the World Series, that was a magical moment. And of course, beating the Cubs in the playoffs, that was special as well. But to be in the World Series, back in the 70s, nobody thought the Padres stood a chance of even doing anything. But eventually, they were building up a club, and that first World Series is always special. Needless to say, it was a real badge of honor and a great morale booster for the entire town. When you have Major League Sports, number one, it's great. But then to have that spirit and winning, it was remarkable. Of course, when the Chargers would play and they would win, the town went nuts. So we had this beautiful playground in the middle of San Diego that everyone could visit, whether you were a sports fan or not. That was great, and so it added a lot to the culture of the town. Something to talk about, something to look forward to, something to have fun with.
Even though the three interviews have contrasting views on the longevity of the stadium, all three agree on its importance and its legacy. With the new decade of sports in San Diego, destined to be headlined by Fernando Tatis Jr. and the San Diego State Aztecs, the future looks brighter than ever. And while the stadium might no longer stand in the heart of San Diego as a beacon for San Diego sports, the memories forged there and impact of it on San Diego culture will never be forgotten.